Hi, good morning, all.
Good morning, all.
Okay, so today's session we are going to talk about mastering property deals and contracts. So we'll discuss about the best practices for handling contracts, property due diligence, and ensuring smooth transactions. So I would like to introduce my colleague, the veteran of real estate, who has defined the age and is very active and aggressive in real estate, who's been doing good numbers month on month and inspiration to many. So Mr. Manjunath H. So he's one of the agent who's been there with EXP for a long time. He has got an experience over 3.6 years in EXP Global alone, and he's got very good in-depth knowledge of both
Yeah, no audio.
Sure. Thank you, Nawaz and Vijay for hosting me for this session. And a very happy morning to all, one and all who are in this session. Okay, as Nawaz briefed, I am not a veteran in real estate. In fact, I started my real estate profession with EXP Global 3.5 years back. This April, I should be completing 4 years, great 4 years with EXP. As EXP is also new to India and learning the India business, I am also learning the India business along with EXP. And it's a great joy working with all of you. And today's market scenario is quite different and dynamic, which EXP is helping, I'm sure, to all the agents to buckle up and move ahead in the Indian real estate market. Okay, and just as Nawaz, can you share the screen, Vijay? I will be just taking through the mastering the property deals and contracts. Of course, India has different state has different types of communication system in terms of the property deals and contracts. But more or less, it is same based on
Limit नहीं
the
है.
important bills that is there in place since 1852. But to come to the agendas today, I'd be briefing about the introduction to property transactions in India, understanding the basics of property contracts, key aspects of property for due diligence, best practices for smooth property transactions, which is always a challenge in India, legal considerations and compliance, tax considerations, and how we have to close the deals in terms of due diligence. Giving about the overview of the property transactions in India. Property transactions involve three key aspects: buying, selling, or lease rentals. Okay, in the real estate business through a complete and regulated process. These transactions are governed by multiple laws, including the Transaction of Property Act, which was bought in 1892, then the Registration Act, and the latest one is the RERA Act, which was bought in 2016. Am I audible to everybody? Yeah. The process is typically involves a lot of documentations and verification, due diligence, legal due diligence of the property, registration of the sub-registrar office, payment of stamp duty charges, and understanding the local rules and regulations and market conditions to serve the successful transaction. Of course, there are three key stakeholders in any transaction in real estate business. Is one is the buyer, second one is seller, and the third one, as we realtors make a major difference to this. Of course, the government agencies also. Okay, it is like this in any corporate world. The CEO of a company takes care of the entire business, and there are cross-functional teams like finance, sales and marketing, legal. It is also like this only in real estate transaction business that, okay, we as realtors act as CEOs in terms of closing the business. Okay, we liaise with the buyer, we liaise with the seller, we liaise with the government and legal teams. Of course, they're all involved deeply in their own domain, which we have to ensure that we do the right way and coordinate with everybody and ensure that the transactions are closed. If you have any questions, I can take it up later on also. And as I said earlier, the real estate realtors plays a very important role bringing the buyer and seller together, understanding their needs and requirements. And then once the negotiations are closed, okay, we start with the we start with doing giving the advance and then doing the agreement. And before the agreement, we collect the papers from the seller, and then we suggest the seller to go with the right person who has in-depth knowledge of the due diligence of the properties. Okay, and also we act upon in terms of deriving the market value of the property also. There are three basic aspects in terms of property closing. One is the sale agreement, as I said earlier. It is once the negotiations are closed and both the buyer and seller agrees, there is an initial agreement that needs to be done. Of course, with now RERA coming into picture, the agreement also plays a very vital role, especially when we are selling the apartments and the gated development plotted as approved by the local authorities. Here, in the agreement, the latest that what we need to look into is also not only the terms of agreement and also when we are selling a property, okay, especially the apartments and villas, and here the detailed details of the project has to be completely mentioned, okay, as per the RERA Act. That plays a very, very important role, and it has to be delivered accordingly. The second one is the lease agreement. The lease agreement is generally done in terms of the commercial spaces, retail spaces, and office spaces, where lease agreement has to be registered if there is a lock-in period and agreement is for more than 11 months. Otherwise, there is no need for registering the document. And the third and the most important thing is the sale deed. At the time of possession, the sale deed has to be executed to the satisfaction of both the buyer and the seller, which will be all the terms and conditions will be mentioned as per the sale agreement. Any questions here, if you have? Okay, shall I continue? Okay, fine. The key aspects, any property that needs to be closed by the buyer, there are very, very important due diligence that needs to be done by the legal person who the buyer hires. The first is the title verification of the property. Basically, the title verification has to be at least for 30 years. Okay, with the mother deed playing a very important role. After the mother deed, there has to be the what is called as the mutation certificates in terms of land, okay, and also the conversion of the land if it is in agriculture. He cannot sell the property or buy the property, and that needs to be converted to either residential or commercial or industrial. So these title deeds and the conversion certificates and the approval from the local authority is very much required in terms of going forward with the next steps along with the transaction. The next important thing is the encumbrance check. The encumbrance certificate needs to be at least taken for 30 years, where it gives the complete details of the transaction on the property that is done, and it is there in the local government sub-registrar office with the complete details of how many hands have changed and from where it has come and to whom it has gone, or is there any financial obligations on the property or hypothecation of the property. All these things will come into picture in the encumbrance certificate. The third and the most important thing, as I told you earlier, in title deed verification itself is land use and zoning. Every authority has what is called as the zoning of the property. Generally, it is categorized into three. Basically, the green zone, which is basically meant for agriculture activities, and the yellow zone is a mix of residential, and only 33% of the zones can be used for commercial activity. The remaining has to be for the residential. And the third one is the gray zone, which is called for the industrial zone, where the industrial activities also happens. And to some extent, The local authorities take exception in coming up with mixed use, both for commercial, residential, and educational institutions also. So these zones play a very important role before going for any property and understanding that whether the property is falling in the right zone to buy it. And of course, the all important thing is the statutory approvals that the local authorities, there will be a lot of, zones that the local government, state government create, okay, in terms of developing the infrastructure in the particular city or town. Basically, it will be development, local development authorities. For example, in Delhi, it is called as Delhi Development Authority, or in Bangalore, it is called as Bangalore Development Authority. And in the satellite towns also, it will be given a town planning authority will be formed, and those authorities will give the required sanctions to go with the whether for a commercial activity or residential activity. Then the fifth important point is the physical verification of the property. Okay, we should ensure that okay the physically the property is in the right zone, okay, and all the statutory requirements are followed up, like if there is a sewage canal or stormwater drain going through, or the lake is nearby, the buffer zone has been left or not, that needs to be checked into. Otherwise there will be a lot of violations and the planning authority will not be able to give the sanctions. That is also very, very important. And this needs to be very carefully examined because nowadays a lot of lands are coming up by acquiring illegally and extension of the properties and constructions are going on. These are the things which the legal team also helps plays a very critical role in identifying whether it is in the right zone or the proper complete documents from the sanctioning authorities are in place. And the final important thing is the financial due diligence. If you are going for the loan against the loan on the property for mortgaging, you need to ensure that okay, all these set of documents are given and it goes through with the payment, whatever that is agreed upon. And in the next slide, I'm going to brief about the best practices for a smooth property transaction. Okay, as I said earlier, we have to engage an expert legal person, advocate, who has in-depth knowledge about the city, about the local authorities, and about the rules and regulations that is governing the particular city for infrastructure development as well as for both residential, industrial, and commercial. This needs to be he plays a very, very important role in terms of giving the opinion whether the property has the right title deeds, is on the right place, okay, without any encumbrances, okay, and also with planning authorities, sanctioning authorities giving all the necessary required approvals. Because we, as a layman, will not understand in depth about what are the changes that has taken place, whether there is any litigation on the property, whether there are any cases pending against these properties, okay, which we will never come to know unless and until we go to a professional legal and seek their help. Okay, and a very, very important thing after all these things is a well-defined agreement is very much required in place. As I said, this is the basis on which all the future transactions of this property happens. If this contract in the agreement is clearly mentioned for both buyer and seller, basically it should contain the details of the property, the payment schedules, the possession date, and default clauses, which are also very important, should be there in the property agreement, and it should be stamped with the stamp duty and it should be paid. Of course, that stamp duty can be later on when the sale deed happens, registration happens, will be adjusted against the registration stamp duty charges that you will be paying. And very important thing is property verification, the titles. This plays a very, very vital role, as I said. Okay, and all these things need to be done with a complete due diligence. We have to have a lot of patience in doing all these things because we need to follow up with the lawyers, with the seller, and with the local authorities also in terms of getting the required papers whenever that is required. We as realtors need to are the bridge between all these people and ensure that okay to have a smooth property transaction we get the required papers from the seller, follow up with them regularly and get all the papers cleared. And very important thing is we have to document each and every communications that we have with the buyer, with the seller, and legal authorities also, legal person also. This documentation plays everything. If by any chance, if there are any miscommunication or misunderstanding between the buyer and the seller, we play a very important role by documenting all these things, bringing them together and ensure that, okay, the transactions go smoothly. Navas, can we have the next slide, please? Okay, as I mentioned earlier, the legal consideration and compliances, there are five important things, okay, which are the Indian Registration Act in 1908, okay, the Property Transfer of Property Act in 1882, the Indian Stamp Act, which gives the power to the respective state governments and ensure that okay, the all the properties that is bought and sold are recorded, and the required registration charges, including stamp duties, are collected. Okay, the Indian Stamp Act was bought in 1899, and the most important that came into picture, which has made our life easy. The buyer, realtors, and the seller is RERA Act 2016. Just to give a brief about RERA 2016, which plays a very vital, important role for us, is that we as realtors also need to be a RERA certified agent. We have to be registered, which today EXP has taken licenses in 16 states, and we are happy and we are continuously doing business without any hassle. This plays a very important role because we are also equally responsible in terms of bringing the buyer and the seller together and ensure that okay, all the details are documented while we are facilitating the complete property transaction. And of course, the local laws and municipal regulations, which are very important because any builder, when they are constructing the apartment or doing a plotted development, they have to abide by the local laws, be it the setback of the property, leaving the setback of the property, the FAR, that is called what we call it as floor area ratio, are followed. Okay, and also the licenses that need to be procured, clearances that need to be procured while developing the property. Like, we have to get, for example, I'll tell you in the local Bangalore, we call it as BBMP approval, that is Mahanagarapalika approval, then BWSSB, that is Bangalore Water and Sewage Board approval, fire approval, then the environment clearance need to be there. Okay, and also the local town planning sanctioning authorities approval needs to be there, whether the plot is right for constructing the apartment or not. All these local regulations and laws need to be there in place, and we have to ensure that okay, all these things we also check, and the legal person also checks, and then the closing of the transactions can be smooth and easy. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, thanks, Nawaz. See, the final part is in terms of, when it comes to financial transactions, there are three important things that need to be looked into. The one is the capital gain tax. Okay, when the seller sells the property, okay, he will come into picture in terms of capital gain tax. As per the new law that came into effective from April this year, 2024, was that okay, capital gain tax will now be merged into long term, will be only as one from following from 2025-26 financial year. Whatever the transactions that we do in this financial year before 31st March, okay, there is a benefit for the seller, whether he can go with the old tax regime of taking the indexation benefit and paying only 20% tax. Otherwise, after 31st March 2025, every seller has to abide by the new law, what is called where he has to pay 20%, 12.5% tax, and he will not be able to get the benefit of indexation, whether he has bought the property in 2014 or whether he has bought the property 2 years back also. So, whoever wants to close the resale transactions, it is better to do that before 31st March this year so that indexation benefit will come. Basically, the indexation benefit, as earlier Shashank also had explained, that okay, when I have bought a property, say in 2014 or 2010, okay, where I have bought the property at 50 lakhs and today if I am selling at 1 crore, okay, the inflation cost is taken into account from 2010 to till the day I'm closing the transactions, so that you are paying the tax on the remaining 50% comes down because you are factoring the inflation cost from the last 10 years. So that will give the added benefit if you are doing the transaction within 31st of this year, to 31st March this year. Otherwise, from next year onwards, it will be straight 12.5% and there will not be any indexation benefit. Sometimes who owned the property earlier, they might lose on the benefit of this. And 20 with the 12.5% will be the fixed capital gain tax that needs to be paid by the seller. Any questions on this? Okay. The other part is the GST part, which earlier, which even GST also has made our life, the builder, realtor, and the buyer's life very easy. Earlier, there used to be n number of taxes. That is the VAT tax, OCTRA was there, customs was there, excise was there, all and state tax was there. Now all these tax have been abolished, and only one simple goods and services tax has come into picture. Even though GST per se has not directly come into real estate sector, but indirectly we are real estate sector also plays a very major role in contributing to the GST. Earlier, all these things were abolished, GST has come into picture. Now there are only two types of GSTs. That is, if you are buying an affordable home, that is affordable home in the sense in metropolitan cities, for example, I'll say 45, 45 lakhs and below, and 60 square meters below is the definition of a affordable home. If you are buying that property, then if you are under the PM-AY Awas Yojana, then you will get to pay only 1% of the GST on the transaction value. If it is not falling under affordable homes, then it is 5% is the consideration for under construction property. And if it is a property which is ready to move in and completion certificate and OC has been given, you need not pay GST, but the GST will always be factored by the builder when he is selling the ready to move in property. This 5% is calculated not on the complete sale transaction value, that we need to keep it in mind. Okay, it is only on the 2/3 of the sale consideration value, 2/3 of the sale consideration value only GST will be calculated. That is, remaining 1/3 is considered as the land. I hope I am clear in this. Okay, and GST for the under construction property, anything above 45 lakhs is considered flat, whether it's a 5 crore property or it's a 1 crore property, also it is the same. It is 5% that need to be paid on the 2/3 value of the total cost. And the third important thing is at the time of agreement itself, we pay. And again, the stamp duty depends on state to state. It varies from 1% to 10%, depending upon the state where we are doing the transaction. And at the time of agreement itself, 1% of the sale registration value will be taken into stamp duty charges. And the balance, whatever that need to be paid, for example, in Karnataka, it is 6.65%, including the cess and all. That 1% will be deducted and the remaining will need to be paid as stamp duty charges and franking charges at the time of registration. And this again varies from state to state. Okay, and very important, other important consideration is at the time of selling a property, the buyer has to do tax reduction at source for the seller at 10% of the sale transaction value and pay to the income tax department and submit the certificate. This is also very, very important. Otherwise, the registration part will not be, stamp duty charges and registration part will not be completed without that coming into picture. Any questions you have in this?
Manjunath, it's Anand here.
Yeah, Anand.
Just wanted to understand a little bit about franking charges.
Yeah, franking charges is nothing but stamp duty charges. Okay, where you pay right now 1% of the sale agreement value. Okay, suppose now it is 1 crore is the transaction value. Okay, in that your current stamp duty charges are 6.65%. Okay, out of that you pay 1% now.
Okay.
Okay, and the remaining you pay at the time of registration, balance 5.5%, 5.65%.
Okay. So I mean to say the initial 1% is considered as franking charges.
Yeah, stamp duty charges.
Can I add to it, Manju, if you don't mind?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, Vasu.
Can I add to this what franking is? Hello.
Yeah, Vasu, tell me.
Yeah, franking basically, Anand, would be like, normally a transaction has two documents: agreement to sell and sale deed, right? So agreement to sell, to make it more validate, to validate it more, we have to frank it. That's a advance payment of stamp duty and registration
Stamp
charge.
duty charges, correctly.
And this is like 0.5% to my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong. Earlier it was 0.1%. Now it is 0.5% of the total registration cost, which is adjusted while we register the property. At that time, it is in the total registration and stamp duty. That's adjusted.
Yeah,
And
you're right, Vasu. It is 0.5%, not 1%.
and TDS also is 1% for Indians, and it is 23.92% for NRI as of now. Again, how you play for the TDS for NRIs, we can discuss later. This is what I want to do.
Yeah, NRIs is quite complicated, Vasu, but it is standard for Indian buyers.
Yes, it is TDS has to be there for all the
Yeah,
buyers.
without TDS, the registration will not happen.
Will not happen. That's right. Thanks.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Vasu, and thank you, Manjunath. Thanks so much.
One question, Manju, if you know, do you have any idea what is the exact percentage of registration and stamp duty for the lease documents, commercial leases?
Commercial leases, I need to check, Vasu.
Okay, no worries, no. Thanks.
What's the question, Vasu? If you can just ask again. Hi, Manjunath sir.
Shishank, I wanted to know what is the registration and stamp duty charges for a registered lease agreement, commercial lease agreement?
It's 2% of the total lease consideration. Like for example, if the property is for 2 lakh rupees a month and the tenure is 24 months, so you have to multiply 24 into 2 lakhs, which comes out to be your 48 lakh rupees with an escalation jo bhi, and you have to pay 2% as a stamp duty charges.
And this
So
is standard with
registered.
all the states, or you have different?
I understand it's standard, but you can check again.
Done.
But I know for a sure that this is, applicable in Delhi and Bombay, though, for sure.
So, if we go for say for 3 years registration of a lease deed, it will be on the 3 years into 2%.
Correct.
Okay, right. Thanks.
Again, like I said, and then again, it might be differ from the state to state, but this is what it is.
Shashank, I think in Karnataka it is 1%.
1% is registration charges.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2% is the stamp duty charges, 1% is registration charges. This is how it calculated. So 2 plus 1. Baki you can check, with the local guy who do the deed writers and all. So what I always recommend that, there has to be a 1% dedicated for every city at a company level that can, give you all this information and who can be a go-to person. We do have Noida, Delhi, Gurgaon. We do have, I think, in Pune also. I'm not sure about Bangalore. How many registrar office in Bangalore? In totality,
Bangalore, there are 26 now.
26 sub-registrar office.
Yes.
It's huge.
Huge.
So in Delhi, I think there are 7 sub-registrar only. Bangalore is 26.
Bangalore is huge. They have increased a lot of sub-registrar offices now.
Okay. Yeah, so I think what we can do now in that case, we need to see that we have at least north, east, west, south, central. There's one guy, documentation guy, who charge like do the paperwork and everything. I think that should be the go-to person. Or if there's a local lawyer whose expertise in doing this documentation process, there has to be empaneled with us. So Nawaz, Manjunath, we are open to get such people because we already have seen similar kind of people in, and these people can help you really well when you are working with recurring with them. They don't try to cheat you, because one, you are working with a recurring business to them. Second, they will be available for you whenever it requires.
Yeah, yeah, I do through one person who liaises with the sub-registrar offices and get documents done. Other, it's a very cumbersome process.
Correct, that's what I'm saying. So I think this is good for everyone, and I think Manjunath, you can also introduce him to EXP. We can have a official so that any agent can use
Yeah,
him.
yeah. I'll put him on to Nawaz so that he can
So
discuss.
each office will have a different guy to do it, na? Manju?
Nothing like that. Today, all the sub-registrar office across Karnataka, I'm giving a typical example of Karnataka, are linked to one another, and you can do the registration in any part of Karnataka today.
Correct.
Okay, and you can retrieve the documents in any sub-registrar office.
Then what is the sense of having a district sub-registrar office for each zone? Na?
No, that is the main sub-registrar office, under which there are sub-registrar offices that comes. Different zones have one registrar office. Okay, under that comes the sub-registrar office.
Okay. No, actually, I was talking about the zone only. I think, okay, got it. So, what we can do, just to understand from you, Manjunath, how does it work? Like the process work in Delhi typically, or in Noida? So, you have to take an appointment first, right? Submit all the documentation, upload everything on, like, post paying the stamp duty charges, paying the registration fees. Then you need to apply for a token appointment, we call it. Yeah.
Same case here also,
Same.
Shashank.
Okay.
You have to upload the documents online, take an appointment, pay the stamp duty charges online. Okay, go to the server office at the time that they have given along with the token number, and get the registration, sale deed registration done. Same process also here in Bangalore. Of course, if you wait for through a protocol what they give, it will take its own sweet time. You should know people inside to get the thing done in a day or two.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Only the lawyer helps in this.
Yes,
It's
yes.
hassle-free
Lawyer.
that case.
Yeah,
If
lawyer
the
helps in
system
that also.
goes to the sub-registrar office, they will come back with some of the other questions and queries would be raised, and then they'll keep you kind of like shifting the dates. So ideally, in the interest of the transaction and for the buyer and seller, we should hire a professional to do it who are doing it on a daily
Correct.
basis.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We should have a very professional lawyer who has got connects in all these places, be it the corporation or the sub-registrar office, okay, where things can be done very smoothly and quickly. Otherwise, it will take its own time. Like, for example, in Bangalore, in October, they came out with what is called as e-Astikata. Even today, there are a lot of hindrances in that. Okay, without the e-Astikata in Bangalore, in Karnataka, you cannot register a property.
Yeah, over back to you, Manjunath sir.
So the conclusion is that, okay, as we discussed now, we have to have thorough due diligence, okay, of the comprehensive verification of property documents, the ownership history, and the encumbrances. We need to do the thorough due diligence. We need to engage good lawyers to get all things right, from property verification up to registration, where a well-defined contract will put everything in place, and follow-up of the well-defined contracts makes all our life easy and ensure that, okay, smooth closing of the transaction happens. And very important thing is we have to adhere to RERA and local laws, which of course RERA is very much into which we as realtors also need to go through the RERA Act and then abide by that, so that we are not on the wrong side. Thank you all audience. If any questions, we can take it up.
So Manjunath ji, have you made any documentation checklist like which you ask when it comes to the secondary sales? in Bangalore.
Yeah, I do have it, but let me document it and put it in a PDF and share it.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful for everyone, especially the
Definitely, I'll
people
do
who have
that.
started new.
I'll do that. I'll document it and share it. It's a good one.
And Deep, I think I would be needing the same, one for from your side, since you are also working in the secondary market. If you can just, list, point down one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, like, whatever the documents required when it comes to the seller when he's selling the property.
Yeah, sure, Shashank. I'll prepare a PDF file and I'll share it in the.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any other question for Manjunath sir? Anyone has? I think you have done a great job. No questions for you. That's nice.
No, it has to be more interactive. Anyway, thank you, Shashank.
Hello, good morning. Little question. Deep here. Deep.
Yeah, yeah, Deep, tell me.
Haji. Acha, Manna, in the beginning of the session, we were discussing about, you were telling about what all procedures and what all steps to take before stepping into a transaction or initially going into an agreement to sale. So generally, what happens and generally what we are experienced in the past that there are some cases in which the seller is well equipped with the complete set of documents, but sometimes some sellers are very, I would say, rigid about not sharing any details or any documents before the client comes into the meeting or before they come up with a token. So, what exactly is this? Where exactly do we step in with the due diligence? Because see, there is a basic due diligence which involves checking all the title documents, the authority documents, all the payments, like you said, and sometimes like the property inspection, the due diligence which involves title search, everything. That is not done by the seller until unless the token is a brief token is exchanged. So, what, according to you, is the right way and the best way to approach that before heading into any meeting or any sort of interaction between the buyer and the seller, that these set of documents have to be there?
See, that is where we also play a very important role, Deep. Okay, before we
Hmm.
bring both the buyer and the seller for a meeting together for any
Hmm.
negotiations or closing the deal,
Hmm.
okay, we should ensure
Hmm.
that we have screened through the properties, at least the basics of the properties. Okay, we are not legal experts to completely scan through the properties, understand the nitty-gritties of the property papers, but at least we should know that okay, there is a uh,
Yes.
basic mother deed is there. Okay, if it is an inherited
Hmm.
property, they
Hmm.
have the family tree in place. Okay, the copy
Hmm.
of that,
Hmm.
which we have to do some basic screening of the property documents. Okay, I am sure the seller has confidence and trust in us to show us the property
Hmm.
documents. Okay, in
Okay.
some cases, if you have a good relationship, they will straight away give the a photocopy of the set of property documents. But some, as you rightly said, some sellers do not share the property documents unless and until the token advance is given. Okay,
Hmm.
that is where we
Yes.
have to even the buyer also understands that okay, unless a token payment is done, even he will not get the complete set of properties for legal due diligence. That is the reason they take time. They understand at a price. Okay, give the token advance and then take the papers to show it to the legal team, to show it to their legal team, which takes time, generally 2 weeks or 3 weeks or sometimes up to 1 month also, to completely scrutinize and whatever papers they ask for that. Then only the agreement will happen in place.
Okay. So basically,
Where,
what I do personally in my past transaction, what procedure I've taken, I initiate a small amount of token, which is
correct.
like 50,000 or 1 lakh, depending upon the size of the transaction, the amount of the transaction.
Yeah,
Hello, so am I
absolutely.
audible? Yeah.
You are audible.
And then we take a buffer time for about 10 to 15 days, in which the complete due diligence will be performed by a bank official or by a legal team. And
Correct.
after that 15 days period of time, once we get a go ahead, and that token amount is mentioned as refundable.
Correct.
And once that period of 15 days has lapsed, or before that, and once we get a go signal from the bank's team, then we initiate a registered or a notarized agreement to sale. So this
Correct.
is basically what we follow. Because
Yeah.
sometimes, for example, I would just like to share a little experience. We went into a meeting between the buyer and the seller. The buyer wasn't there. He was connected over a Zoom call, and I was there with his token check, and we sat down with the seller and we were discussing about the titles and everything. So the seller, not owner, the seller came up to me, said, "Sir, this is the property, ye flat hai, and this is the asking amount." So I asked him to share the title documents, and I showed him the check that we have the check from the buyer, and we are here to get an agreement done. So he showed us the title document. It was in his father's name, and his father had passed away, and he told me that ये automatically तो हमारे नाम पे आ गया. So then I clarified to them, no, even if your father has passed away, there is a protocol and there is a set procedure that it has to be shared on to you by the way of will or by the way of relinquishment deed, and then you have to show your ownership, your just so what we call in North India is malikana hak. You have to show your title. So that ways, maybe other agents can also understand. Even if a seller is in front of you and he's claiming to be the seller, so we have to go by the documents and what the title says.
Correct. It has to be done. See, even if the property that if he claims to be the owner also, if there are siblings there also in the picture in the family, okay, everybody's consent needs to be taken. Okay, that's where I said the family tree play also very important role. Take their consent, and then the transfer of ownership from his father to him has to happen only after the concurrence of other family members, immediate family members of the whoever is claiming to be the owner. So these documents need to be there in place for a clean, smooth transaction. In fact, the other day when, since I am also into home loan business, the same case also had come up like, where brothers are there and the court had given the order that, okay, everybody's consent need to be taken before selling the property. So this is where due diligence will come into play. And sometimes even though people doesn't want to take loan, they go to bank loan just for the heck of checking on the documents of the property.
Yes,
Adding
yes.
to what
Thank you.
Manju said just now, and Deep also, while we should know the financial and the legal legalities of any transaction, my advice would be we strongly adhere to professional help like lawyers and auditors to get that respective verticals cleared, because each case or each transaction has a very specific need and a requirement. If we miss on to something, we might go wrong. So always advisable to liaison with a lawyer and a auditor or a CA to kind of take care of such verticals in a transaction. We should stick to our role as a realtor to mediate and coordinate between all the parties. But yeah, of course, this should be taken care of.
Absolutely, boss. We are the coordinators, we are the liaising people between all the different stakeholders because we are not professional in legal due diligence and all. But we have to ensure that, okay, they hire the right people, we can suggest them the right people and get the things done for a smoother transaction so that, buyer and seller will be at peace.
Guys, any other question anyone has? I think all good, Manjunath sir. Thank you so much for taking the session today.
Thank you, Shashank. Thank you all.
Guys, please do a big shout out for Manjunath sir. I think everyone found this session very useful. In fact, I have found it. And it's always good. I mean, this is the beauty of EXP reality that we are not talking about the particular city or state. We are talking about the country, right? So we are hearing from the Bangalore perspective, Gurgaon perspective. I'm sure there will be some agents from Pune or Bombay also who can add some value into this, or Ahmedabad. So that's the beauty that, with EXP, you are able to understand the whole country, not only just one city. So another benefit of being a part of this amazing community of realtors, what we have, the team, what we have.
Thanks,
Thank
Manju.
you so much. Thank you so much, Manjunath sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.